Everyone, this is Chris, and you're listening to One Cross Radio, and we are out and about. It's been, I don't know, at least a year, probably, since I've done one of these, at least that I've widely released. I've done a couple out and abouts for our patrons, as patron-exclusive episodes. So, hey, if you'd like to get more content from me, aside from the awesome Radio Arcade podcast with my boo Christian, consider subscribing on Patreon. We've got multiple tiers, and I do throw in early episodes, bonus content, some videos. If you can, awesome. If not, no worries. Thank you for being here. So, while I'm out and about today, it's actually at a sentimental place. I am hiking at DQ Falls, a lovely trail in St. Catharines. And St. Catharines has a special place in my heart. I met some amazing people during some formative years of my life. God really used them with me, and I'm thankful for them. So this place always holds a special spot. There was a lot of hangs here. And then Luna loves it because it's a trail. She can go wandering around. It's a good time. But I'll probably keep today's episode a little bit shorter, just because as we're on the trail and we're not in private, there's bound to be bumping into people. And people come to hiking trails to escape random wanderers talking into their phones, like me. So we'll probably keep it a little bit shorter. And today's episode is completely unplanned, but it's just something that sprung into mind recently, based on a conversation with some friends that springboarded off of a meme, actually, that one shared. So, I think going back to last September, there's been some conversation, apparently, about Terminator being rebooted, which, I mean, I guess, why not? There's nowhere else to go with it. That's kind of the prompt for this. There is nowhere else to go with it. Like, that ship has sailed. I get it. Studios like money. Franchises like money. Heck, I like franchises. But, really? Do we really need to keep going? Like, really? Can't it be done? At least leave it alone for, like, I don't know, 10 years, 15 years? I think we're oversaturated, and I'm going to get into that in a second, and I will be right back. I'm back. So this is probably going to get split up into parts, just because with the trail, suddenly you're going from being by yourself to bumping into large groups of people. So, anyways, and the nice thing is, sorry for this sidetrack, they're all like, oh, Luna's so pretty, because she is. She's perfection. Okay, so back to the episode. Yeah, it's interesting. I'm listening to an audiobook I've already listened to. It's about unmade Halloween sequels taking shape too. And at one point, they were talking about what was going to be Halloween 9 called Retribution. And that seemed like it was going to go forward eventually before they just decided to do the remake / reboot with zombies Halloween. And they were talking to one of the producers who was at Dimension at the time. And he was like, at some point we had heard like 50, 60 pitches. Some of them really good, some of them crazy. And then it just felt like, it's getting too bogged down, too convoluted, too crazy. The easiest thing to do here is to just go back to the beginning. And I think Terminator's hit that point. But maybe it shouldn't. It's not that I'm opposed to franchises and series going on. Hell, I love Star Wars, Star Trek, Lord of the Rings, although haven't heard the best about the show, and the Hobbits were the mess that they were. But you get what I mean. It's not like, oh, it's all about standalone. Like, I friggin' love Marvel movies and shows. And long-going properties and comics and stuff. All of this is long form. But it's at least good. And at times they'll take some time off. They'll take a break. And Terminator has done that at times, but not necessarily willingly. And it's weird because Terminator Salvation, which I honestly had to look up on Google just to remember the name. It's the one with Christian Bale and Jai Courtney, because remember, oh wait, no, not Jai Courtney, but Sam Worthington, because they were trying to make him a thing, much like they tried to make Jai Courtney a thing a couple years later. And it's not a good movie, but it had promise, and its execution was flawed, but to me, if you're going to continue past T2, which T2 really was the perfect ending. It was so good. You had the ending with Terminator 1, so you could have ended the franchise there, but I'm so glad they didn't, because no offense to T1, it's like it was a much smaller movie, much more independent than Terminator 2. It could have been a self-contained story, so you could argue that T2 wasn't really necessary, but it added so much to the lore, to the franchise, and it's a borderline perfect action movie and movie. It tells the story that it goes to set out, and I wouldn't cut a single thing from it. It's such a damn good movie. And you should have just ended it there. And then, of course, we got T3 later, right before Arnie becomes governor. And it's just like, okay, so we're just doing this now. We're just doing T2. You could at least excuse it for being similar to Terminator 1, where it's like, oh, it's the story we saw before. But this time, the Terminator, at least Arnie's, is the good guy because Skynet sent back a more powerful, updated model. Terminator 3 was the exact same story. The exact same story as T2, and it didn't pull it off nearly as well. Yeah, there's some good set pieces, but it's not a good movie. Terminator Salvation, for all its flaws, and there are many, it at least tried to do something different where, okay, now we're actually in the war. We're in the war that we've been trying to avoid. If studio is so hellbound, determined to continue this franchise, at least that's different enough where it's like, okay, you didn't really need to, but I'm not watching the same thing, just not as good for the third, fourth time. And Salvation was supposed to set up a trilogy, and that's a pattern that continued for the next sequels after that. And Salvation wasn't exactly a bomb, but it didn't set the world on fire. And then, of course, there was the well-known Christian Bale rant in the background of it. And it was a flawed movie. It had some promise. Antoine Yelchin, may he rest in peace, as Kyle Reese was a really cool casting. Christian Bale, I think, could have been a great John Connor, but he wasn't in that movie. I don't think he was as solid in that movie as he could have been. I don't know if that was his choice, the director's choice, or whatever. But this was also as Bale was like riding high on the Batman wave. And yeah, it's a mixed bag. It's better than Genesis, spelt with a Y for no real reason. Which now it's like, hey, we're going back in time again. Only this time we're going back to Sarah, and then John's somehow the bad guy. What? That didn't make any bloody sense. I don't think I'm in the right spot. Are we able to walk down here? Let's see. I'm trying to see if there's a path. Because I was at a spot where the path offshoots. Okay, yeah, there is a little bit of a path. It's just steep. Okay. Well, nah, we'll go the other way. Alright, sorry. You guys are getting this rambling ramble train. So yeah, they did that, and Matt Smith was in that, and Matt Smith can be a great actor. If you've watched Doctor Who, with him as the 11th Doctor, you can totally see that. But Genesis was another mixed bag, and they're like, alright, we're gonna go back again. And this time was cool because we had Arnie again. But it wasn't good. It was a flawed movie. And it was supposed to start, you guessed it, a new trilogy. Because at the time, trilogies were all the craze. It was as Marvel was picking up, so it's like, alright, we might not be able to do giant shared universe, but franchises are clearly popping. Let's do a trilogy. Why do one when we can do three? And it's a bad flick. I don't really think there's anything good in Genesis. I can't really compliment it. Which is more than I can say for the next film, Dark Fate. So Genesis, I think, bombed out of theaters. If not bombed, it underperformed. So they decided, you know what? We're going to scrap this storyline. So for the second time in as many movies, they're scrapping trilogies. And I think when you need to focus on a good start. You need to have a solid enough story that can be its own thing without setting up the world building. I think great examples of that within self-contained trilogies are Star Wars. A New Hope does an amazing job, and Lucas was like, I retain the rights for the sequels, but nobody thought that was going to happen. Everybody thought it was going to be a terrible friggin' movie. They did not think it was going to become the success that it was. So A New Hope, because it does have a climactic ending, even though there were plans for it, it works as an isolated story by itself. Lord of the Rings, even though that was going to be a trilogy. Actually, no, that one doesn't hold as much, but because you can't end the movie there, but it's also... Fellowship is just a dope movie, and whenever I talk trilogies, I gotta give props to Fellowship, because it's friggin' dope. Okay, now I'm trying to think of other trilogies where it's like it could end. But I think Star Wars starts it really, really well. I mean, even arguably Batman Begins. If you didn't carry on afterwards, even though they were bound to, that's a great ending point. Where he's now Batman, and he's off to protect Gotham. You could have ended it there. And sure, they might have had sequels in mind, but that wasn't the be-all, end-all.
Hello.
Hey, how's it going, sir?
Good. How are you?
Doing all right. Oh, we got bikers. Here, we'll get out of your way. No problem. Have a great day. Awesome tattoos, by the way. No problem. Listen, guys, I like complimenting people. We got a lot of upsetting things going on, and life isn't fun. Get off my back. I like complimenting people. Yeah, so weird comparison I can make is Amazing Spider-Man 2. Or even MCU-wise, Iron Man 2, Age of Ultron. Like, those movies suffered because they were like, oh, we got to do so much to set up what's coming later. This is the springboard that the primary story got lost in the shuffle and wasn't as good. I think that happened to a degree with Salvation. It definitely happened with Genesis. Now, I'll be straight up. I haven't seen Dark Fate. I thought it didn't look good. No offense to director Tim Miller. It just didn't look like it was going to be a movie I'd enjoy that much. And from everything I've read about it, to scenes I've watched, to friends who have similar tastes who have watched the movie, no. Like, what was that? And it also, in a way, committed a big, I want to say sin, but faux pas of, if you're carrying on franchises, especially if the movies haven't been as good, you don't want it to negatively impact what came before. Like, say what you will, or say what I will about the Jaws sequels, for lack of another term, but Jaws 2, 3, and especially The Revenge, they don't tarnish or ruin anything. Sorry for the sneeze. They don't tarnish or ruin anything from Jaws. Like, you can leave Jaws alone and just watch it as is. You can still enjoy Jaws. I don't know if you can enjoy Jaws 2 in isolation from Jaws, because it references the first film so much, but it doesn't go and do anything that undoes, like, the heart of those first two movies, which Dark Fate does. It kills John Connor in the first 10 minutes. So, the best two movies, and T3 even has its supporters and fans, and John's front and center, you're still, like, just doing that completely undoes any attachment to the struggle Sarah went through in T1, and then John and Sarah went through in T2 to prevent Judgment Day. Now, heck, you could say that to a degree that got undone with T3, where it's like Judgment Day is inevitable, and you might as well have just flashed the dollar signs and on your sunglasses as he said it. But it at least didn't go like, okay, hey, that guy we've been saying is the savior of the franchise. The story, not the savior of the franchise, but the savior in the story, like the guy who will lead them to victory after this long, hard-fought road of massive death and almost total annihilation. Oh yeah, no, we're just going to kill him off in the first 10 minutes. We're going to bring back Edward Furlong to do it too. And it's going to be pretty unceremonious. Like, it's tricky when it's long ongoing franchises, because you feel like, okay, I'm trapped and bogged down in this continuity, but I want to reference what came before, but we got to go somewhere different. And then they did, but what the hell was that? And of course there's no recovery from that. Of course there's no recovery from that. And Dark Fate bombed out of theaters. And Cameron, who everybody was like, oh, Cameron endorses it. Man, Cameron endorsed every Terminator movie post T2, and he's like, yes, this is going to be great. And they decreasingly weren't, or increasingly weren't. Now, I know Dark Fate has its fans, some of like, it's the best sequel since T2, but that's one, I'll disagree, like I said, even though I haven't seen the full film. But also, T2 is like the top of Everest. All the other sequels were lower and lower. So it's like, okay, cool, but you've gotten nowhere near to matching that peak. And I don't think you could, because the story was so well developed and felt organic, it didn't feel like, oh, well, this is a successful franchise, and it was huge and seminal in film, so of course we're going to continue it and make money from it. Everything else felt disingenuous, and I will be right back. Okay, this is part 3, and this is where I'll try to wrap it. It's freaking gorgeous here. It's absolutely beautiful along DQ. I'm just going to get another picture. Doot, and then doot. Sorry. Yeah, I just love it here. Oh, cyclist coming by. Let's move, loons.
What a beautiful day.
Oh, yeah. Thankfully not too hot. Have a good one. yeah, to me, especially, I think the last one that felt like it was trying to be different without the, hey, we're wiping the slate almost clean. Well, not really, because, hey, even though we're saying it's not Skynet, it's another thing now, Dark Fate, which is essentially just Skynet. And we sent like 18 robots out at once instead of just one, which, no, it just undoes stuff for me. Because then it's like, all right, just send someone back in time enough to... Once you start doing that so much, it starts becoming questionable why they didn't just, in Terminator 1, send someone all the way back to, like, the great-great-great-grandfather in frontier times, where nothing technologically would be able to stop a T-800. Like, once they're starting to send them back at multiple times... It's like, why didn't they just send them back far enough where nothing could prevent it? Come on. Anyways, so sorry. Say what you will about Salvation, but at least that one, there wasn't a time-traveling Terminator. It was in a different period. It wasn't someone coming from the future back to the present day. We were there. It was gritty. It was the war. It was at least different. And it was the only one that I kind of found was actually treading some new ground. Because the others are just like, hey, we're going to wipe the slate clean, but we're still basically going to be the exact same story you've seen since T2. We might say, hey, it's this new thing instead of Skynet. But it's the same thing. And I think, to a degree, Terminator might be done. And it should be, at least for a while. Like, the hardcore fans, let alone mainstream audiences, have soured on this franchise increasingly over the past 5, 10, or 15 years. The less and less box office gross shows that. The less awareness of the brand shows that. And Dark Fate, I think, sealed that and showed that in spades. And I don't think there's really anywhere else to go with this story, which I'm also hesitant about even saying the reboot. Because I get it. It's a property. It's something Cameron's, to a degree, still passionate about, although I wish he would have made another one properly. But, like, where we're at now, it's where else is there to go within this franchise that you set out, that you started? The story's been told really well over 2 movies. But unless it's that war period, where else is there to go? And we've already been there, and we know how it's going to go eventually. So I don't know how with Terminator you completely reinvent the wheel. Like, say what you will about Star Wars and some of the current Star Trek stuff. Some people really love it, others not so much. But it's at least a broad, in those cases, galaxy where there's much you can do that's away from 5 or 6 characters. Terminator has never set that up. And I don't know how they can. Now, my buddy Mike did point out, like, you could do what fans have been clamoring for to a degree for years. And we've gotten some comics where it's the Terminator crossing over with Alien, Predator, and even RoboCop, where it's like, you know what? Yeah, why not? That could be fun. Because at this point also, you can't sully the Terminator legacy any more than it already has been. And sure, it might not make a lot of story sense. It would be utterly ridiculous. But it could be bombastic fun. And I think there's room for Terminator to be that. even if it's just for a one-off or a two-off or something. And also, it'd be something fresh on the big screen, because we haven't seen that. We've seen some crossovers to good degrees. Like 15 minutes of Freddy versus Jason, and Godzilla versus Kong. Definitely not with either Alien Predator movies, although I would enjoy a good Alien Predator movie, and I think it could work. Just it didn't when they did it. Why not? Like, crossovers get ripped on and stuff. People are like, oh, it's when we're just so bereft of ideas. This is all that's left. Yeah. That's not in and of itself bad. I think there could be fun with that. And it appeals almost to the child in me, because that's what we did as kids. We'd play with Batman action figures and have them square up on Spider-Man. We'd play with Star Wars stuff and have them square up on people from other galaxies. How many fan debates has there been about how would Star Wars function in the Star Trek universe and all that jazz? How would the Force impact it? And the Enterprise's shields are so much stronger, and Star Wars only has lasers. Like, there could be a fun to it. At times, so many people, when it's weird to me when it's like a crossover talk, suddenly it's like, oh no, that's beneath this. This is film with a capital F. Like, bruh, we haven't been watching the franchise be that since this flick, and Terminator's case T2. I actually heard someone try to use that when talking about like why Freddy versus Jason would be below the franchise. Like, have you watched Friday the 13th? Any of them? They're not highbrow. So why not? So yeah, that's kind of where it is. Seems like Terminator will eventually go a reboot route. I don't think it should. It's probably going to happen. And the reason I don't think it should is I'm in a way fine with reboots or remakes if it's like, hey, we can tell the story a different way. Like, Jaws is a fantastic film. It's a borderline perfect film to me. Same with the first Jurassic Park. I would be down for not a remake of it, because the films themselves are great, but I'd in a way be down for a reboot if they were like a show that was a hybrid of the movie and the books that they were based on, for Jurassic and Jaws. Like, there's room for that, because there's stuff that we haven't seen that could be improved from the book and take the great lessons they learned from the movies. That I'm down for, because there's somewhere else to go with the characters that we love, that we haven't seen. I'm not seeing any of that with Terminator. I don't think that exists. So that's where the remake or reboot, at least right now, doesn't make a lick of sense. If there's nowhere else to go, don't bother. If you want to make money off of it again, re-release T2 in theaters. People will go, man. And yeah, I'm just not sure that it needs to be done. I think in my opinion, now if something changes and someone comes to it with a crazy unique idea, friggin' A, then I'll admit I'm wrong. But just right now, out of rumors and stuff that has been pitched and all that, it's just, this one might be better dead. It might be, how's it going, sir? It just might be better to leave it and leave it alone. Like, that's in a way a concern I had with Prey before it came out. But Predator, even though it's might be a similar story often, it allows itself to go to different time periods with different characters and new ways. And Prey did excellent. It was enough of a difference from the first movie, even though it was still a lot like the first Predator. It was different, and it allows itself to be. Terminator hasn't done that. I don't know if it can. And if it can't go different, if it can't be true to itself while still being something new with a different voice, to me, don't bother. All right, so that's about it. I'm just going to end up going around in circles. So that was the episode for today. Let me know in your thought in the comments, or feel free to DM me on Instagram, Twitter. I'd say Facebook, but I'm rarely ever on there. I haven't actually used Facebook outside of plugging the podcast in years. Pretty sure if I were to go down my timeline, all I'd see for the past 3 years is just One Cross Radio. So it's not the best place to reach me. Instagram, Twitter, even the TikTok, as it's fun for me to call it, and probably no one else. That's a good way to reach. Let me know what your thoughts on this episode were, what your thoughts are on the franchise. Should it go for a while and then come back? Should it just be done? And let me know if you actually enjoyed a sequel beyond T2. And in a way, more importantly, if you enjoyed it more than T2. Because I want to know how. And I want to know why. And that's no judgment. That's a legit curiosity. I've said it before, but I like when we can discuss disagreements. But I also like when people like something a lot that I don't. Because it could be I missed something. It could have been the mood I was in. It could have been, well, my view of it should be strictly this and only this. And because it wasn't this, it bad. So I like when people like things. And I like liking things. But also, I'm open to learning how people see things the way they do. And then I might be able to enjoy something more. So if you really liked any of the sequels beyond T2, especially if you like them more, let me know in the comments. All that being said, I hope you all have a wonderful day. I hope you're being safe. Hope you're enjoying the weather. Take care, and God bless, my friends. Peace.